There may come a time in life when, despite all your sacrifices, wisdom, and love, your adult child seems distant, dismissive, or ungrateful. The pain this brings can be deep, perhaps deeper than almost anything else. After all, you gave your best years, your energy, your heart. And now, instead of appreciation, there is silence, criticism, or worse, indifference. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and thinker, taught us that the second half of life is not meant for climbing ladders or proving ourselves. It is for becoming whole. What does that mean for you now? It means that your worth is not measured by your child's approval. It means you have reached the time in life where your soul demands peace, not guilt, not striving. If your adult child is ungrateful, unkind, or absent, do not automatically blame yourself. Everyone carries their own shadow, the unseen wounds, the stories they tell themselves. You cannot fix another's journey, no matter how deeply you care. Do this, and everything will begin to change. 1. Withdraw your emotional investment from their validation. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. Often we tie our identity to roles: mother, father, provider, protector. But at some point we must stand as individuals, whole in ourselves. If your child cannot or will not see your value, that says more about their journey than your worth. 2. Tend to your inner world. You're not just a parent. You are a full human being with dreams, memories, wisdom, and a lifetime of experiences. Begin to focus inward. Journal, reflect, create, walk in nature, reconnect with your essence. Jung believed that in later years, the psyche urges us toward integration, bringing all parts of ourselves into harmony. 3. Release the illusion of control. We want to believe that love guarantees gratitude, but love is a gift, not a contract. You gave because you loved. That was noble. Their response, or lack of it, is out of your hands. Letting go is not giving up. It's stepping back into your power. 4. Set sacred boundaries. You deserve respect at any age. If your child is abusive, manipulative, or consistently disrespectful, you're not obligated to endure it. Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Sometimes that includes blaming parents. Do not carry their unresolved pain. Return it to them with grace, and then walk on. 5. Reconnect with life beyond family roles. This is your time. Join communities, start new hobbies, deepen friendships. Your life is transforming. The final chapters can be the richest, most honest, and most liberating. Jung wrote that, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You are not just someone's parent. You are a soul on a journey. 6. Forgive, but do it for you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means you choose to stop poisoning your own heart with bitterness. You forgive to set yourself free. Sometimes that means forgiving yourself too, for mistakes, regrets, or believing you failed. You didn't fail. You lived. You loved. You tried. 7. Trust your inner voice again. At your age, your intuition is not rusty. It's gold. You've seen cycles, patterns, the truth behind people's masks. Trust your instincts. If your heart says, "Enough," believe it. If it whispers, "It's time to begin again," follow it. You are not defined by another person's blindness to your value. You are a whole, worthy, radiant being, still capable of joy, change, and deep inner peace. And perhaps, one day your child may awaken to the truth of who you are. Or perhaps they won't. Either way, your soul knows the path forward. Walk it. Dear friend, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for subscribing. You may not realize it, but your presence here means more than words can say. We are a small team, quietly working each day with one purpose: to create content that uplifts, comforts, and gives strength, especially for those in the later chapters of life, where the world too often forgets to listen. This space is for you, for your wisdom, for your journey, for your soul. If something we share touches you, or if there's something you wish we'd talk about, please leave us a comment below. We read every word. And when you write, you help guide us forward. For you, and for others like you. We see you, we honor you, and we are so grateful you're walking this road with us. With deep respect and all our gratitude, your devoted team.
Why do adult children sometimes become ungrateful? Not just distracted, not just busy, truly and painfully ungrateful. And before we go any further, let me say this clearly. If you are asking yourself this question, it is already a sign of what kind of parent you are. You are someone who cares deeply, someone who reflects, someone who still wants to understand your children even decades after raising them. Jung told that parents, by living their lives honestly and lovingly, give children an inner strength that continues to guide them. You have done more of that than you probably admit. Let's take our time, breathe, and walk through this topic gently. 1. The shift in roles. The invisible turning point. As children become adults, a quiet but powerful shift happens. What used to be a relationship of constant giving from your side and constant receiving from theirs gradually transforms into something more equal. Yet many adult children fail to notice this transformation. They move through their adult life as if your presence, your generosity, and your emotional availability are simply part of the landscape. Like a familiar road they've walked so long, they no longer look down at their feet. I once received a letter from a woman named Margaret, who told me how her son, now 42, still assumed she would figure things out whenever he was in trouble, financial, emotional, or otherwise. She said, "I raised him to be confident, and somehow he mistook my strength for endless capacity." Jung would call this a projection, where one person unconsciously assigns qualities to another that are not entirely real. They see you as endlessly strong because that is the role their childhood assigned to you, and in their mind, the role never changed. It isn't about you not being appreciated. It's about them not understanding the evolution of your relationship. 2. The speed and pressure of modern adulthood. Another truth, one we cannot ignore, is that younger generations live in a different emotional climate. They are burdened by financial instability, constant digital noise, career anxieties, and emotional exhaustion that sometimes makes even the simplest acts of gratitude feel heavy. This does not excuse their behavior, but it does help us understand it. A man named Joseph once described how his daughter rarely returned his calls, even though she loved him dearly. When she finally explained herself, she said, "Dad, I work 12 hours a day. By the time I get home, I have no words left for anyone, even you." He later told me, "I knew she was tired, but I didn't know she was empty." Jung often emphasized that people act from the subconscious more than from intention. Many adult children are not consciously choosing ingratitude, they are simply overwhelmed, stressed, or emotionally numb. Again, that does not mean your feelings are any less valid. 3. Emotional blindness. The parent as a symbol, not a person. One of the hardest truths is that many adult children do not see their parents as individuals with their own emotional worlds. They still view you through the lens of childhood, invincible, patient, endlessly giving. This emotional blindness often comes from love, ironically. They grew up believing you were their protector. They unconsciously assume you are still unshakable. I remember a widowed mother named Elaine who described how her daughter snapped at her for being dramatic when Elaine said she felt lonely on weekends. Later, her daughter apologized and admitted, "I forget you're a real person sometimes." Jung believed that every parent exists in the child's psyche first as an archetype, the mother, the father. These archetypes are powerful but simplified, and children rarely update them until something forces them to. You do not remain unappreciated because you are unworthy. You remain unappreciated because they have not yet learned to see you as fully human. 4. Unresolved emotions from the past, real or imagined. Some adult children carry their own wounds, some real, some distorted by memory, and some created by comparison with other families or influences. A father once told me his daughter blamed him for being emotionally distant in her teenage years, even though he was working 2 jobs to keep the family afloat. Her pain was real, but her interpretation was incomplete. Jung wrote, "The greatest part of emotional conflict is due not to reality, but to the imagination of reality." Adult children sometimes hold on to simplified stories of the past because that story helps them make sense of their current struggles. It is not that they want to hurt you, they simply cannot yet reframe the narrative in a mature way. And again, this is not about parental failure, it's about the child's emotional development. Stay with me until the end because that's where the real clarity appears. The part that helps you finally understand what's happening and what you can gently do to heal your heart. 5. A culture that doesn't teach gratitude. We live in a society where gratitude is not practiced but assumed, where people rush forward without pausing to look back. Younger generations are trained to chase achievement, fulfillment, independence and comparison. Gratitude requires reflection and presence is rare today. A mother named Linda told me her adult sons never thanked her for helping them through college. She said, "They talk about how hard everything is today, but they forget that I struggled too." Jung believed that each generation carries both the light and shadow of the previous one. Gratitude belongs to the light, but many people today live in their shadow, fear, stress, and constant striving. 6. The strong parent paradox. And now, a difficult but gentle idea. Some ungrateful behavior comes from the fact that you were an exceptionally strong parent. When someone is always capable, always reliable, always holding everything together, people stop noticing how much effort that takes. A woman once told me, "I never asked for help, and now my children assume I never need any." Her voice wasn't bitter, it was simply tired. Jung taught that when a person hides their vulnerabilities, others will fill the empty space with assumptions. Your strength made them feel safe, but it also made your needs invisible. That does not mean you did anything wrong. It means you were powerful. And sometimes powerful people are unintentionally overlooked. So why do adult children become ungrateful? Because the world changed, because roles shifted, because they are overwhelmed, because they still see you through the eyes of childhood, because they project their fears and struggles onto you, because they were never taught how to pause and appreciate what was given to them, and sometimes because your strength made them forget you could be tired. None of these reasons point to failure on your part. If anything, they reveal the depth of what you've given. And I hope as we continue this journey together, you begin to feel not only understood, but also profoundly valued for everything you carried, everything you sacrificed, and everything you still offer simply by caring.
Episode 3. Am I a bad parent? What's yours and what's not yours? Today we're stepping into a topic that touches something very deep inside many parents, especially those whose children have grown up, moved on, pulled away, or turned cold in ways that feel confusing and painful. The question, am I a bad parent, doesn't come out of nowhere. It usually appears late at night when the house is quiet, when the phone hasn't rung in weeks, when your messages go unanswered, or when your grown child blames you for things you don't even remember the same way. This question comes from love, not failure. It comes from a heart that still cares. And today, we are going to gently separate two worlds. What is truly your responsibility and what never belonged to you in the first place. This is one of the most freeing conversations a parent can ever have. 1. The myth of the perfect parent, and why it haunts so many people. Let's begin with something foundational. There is no such thing as a perfect parent. There never was, there never will be. You raised your child inside real life, with real pressures, real limitations, real fears, real financial worries, real exhaustion, and very little guidance. You made decisions based on the knowledge you had then, not the clarity you have now. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming into consciousness without pain." He meant that we grow by living, not by knowing everything in advance. Parents grow the same way. You were not meant to be flawless. You were meant to be human. A mother named Irene once told me, "I look back now and see moments I wish I handled differently, but I also remember the rent, the sleepless nights, the illness, the pressure. And I realize I did the best I could." She wasn't a perfect parent. She was a real one, and real parents are the ones who shape strong, resilient children. If you're questioning yourself now, it's not because you failed. It's because you loved deeply. 2. What might genuinely be yours? Honest reflections without shame. Now, let's gently acknowledge what could be your part of the story. Not as blame, but as recognition. Maybe there were moments when you were overwhelmed and didn't have emotional energy. You were strict because you feared for your child's future. You were quieter, more distant, more tired than you wish you had been. You didn't talk openly about feelings because no one taught you how. These things happen to millions of parents. They are part of the human experience, not evidence of failure. Jung believed that parents pass down not only love, but also their unprocessed struggles, unknowingly. Not because they are bad, but because they are human beings in motion. A father named Samuel once shared a story. He worked 2 jobs, came home exhausted, and didn't always have the patience he wished for. Years later, his son said, "You were strict, but you were always there. You showed me how to work hard." Samuel cried because he finally understood something important. His imperfections didn't erase his love, and they didn't destroy his child. Let this settle in your chest gently. Your mistakes do not define your entire parenthood. The years of love, effort, sacrifice, and showing up, those define you. 3. What is not yours and never was? This is where the real healing begins. There is a long list of things parents blame themselves for, even when they had no control over any of it. Let's talk about that. You are not responsible for your adult child's emotional maturity, how they cope with stress, whether they hold grudges or refuse to communicate, their relationship choices, their career struggles, their inability to apologize, or the story they choose to tell themselves about the past. A woman named Judith once told me her grown son said, "I'm unhappy because of how you raised me." But he was 38. He had a stable income, a home, opportunities she never had, and still blamed her. That blame was about him, not about her. Jung taught that when adults avoid facing their own shadow, their fears, insecurities, anger, disappointments, they often project it onto the easiest and safest target. And the safest target is usually the parent. When your adult child blames you for everything, it doesn't mean you failed. It means they are not ready to own their own story. This is their psychological journey, not your report card. 4. Why guilt attaches itself so quickly to loving parents? Parents feel guilt so easily because guilt is woven into love. When you care, you look inward first. You think, maybe it was me. Maybe I should have done better. But guilt is not always truth. Often it's just a deeply rooted habit of the heart. Carl Jung said something very powerful. The parent's task is to prepare the child for life, not protect the child from life. You taught them how to survive, how to keep going, how to care, how to try. You could not and should not have prevented every discomfort or challenge. A father named Thomas once said, "My daughter is angry at her whole life, and somehow I became the symbol of everything that disappointed her." He wasn't alone. Many parents carry guilt for storms their adult children created themselves. Guilt grows in silence, but guilt does not equal blame, and guilt is not the same as responsibility. 5. Responsibility versus blame, the most freeing distinction. Here's the truth, spoken gently but clearly. You were responsible for raising your child. You're not responsible for how they behave as an adult. 2 siblings raised in the same home can grow into completely different adults. One thankful, one resentful, one indifferent. If parenting alone determined behavior, all children from the same family would be the same. But they aren't. A mother named Elise asked me, "How can I be a good mother to one son and a bad mother to the other?" The answer is simple. You can't, because it was never about you in the first place. Each child grows their own psyche, their own wounds, their own interpretations, their own shadows. Jung believed that every adult must go through a process called individuation, the journey of separating from the parent and forming an independent identity. Some do it with gratitude, some do it with distance, some do it with anger, but it is their journey, not an evaluation of you. 6. Stories of real parents and what they teach us. Let's sit with a few examples that mirror what so many people experience. Example 1. I never hated you. I was overwhelmed. A woman named Carol shared that her son barely spoke to her for years. She assumed it was because of something she'd done. When they finally talked, he said, "Mom, I was drowning in my own life. I wasn't avoiding you. I was avoiding everyone." Her relief was immense. She realized the silence wasn't judgment, it was overwhelm. Example 2. You were my safe person to blame. A man named Daniel told his mother that he had spent years angry at her because it was easier than admitting he was afraid of failing in adulthood. He said, "I blamed you because I didn't know where else to place my fear." This is classic Jungian projection. His mother carried guilt she never deserved. Example 3. I didn't know you needed appreciation. A daughter told her aging father, "I never thought about saying thank you. You were always strong. You didn't look like you needed it." He cried because he finally understood. His silence about his own needs had hidden them from her. These stories carry one message. Your adult child's behavior is rarely a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their emotional world. 7. How to release guilt and reclaim your confidence as a parent. Let's talk about healing. You can begin releasing the weight you've been carrying by accepting a few truths. You are human, not perfect, and that was enough. You gave love, structure, food, guidance, and stability. You handled more than anyone knows. You did not intentionally harm your child. Loving parents rarely do. Mistakes happen, but intent matters. Your adult child is responsible for their own growth now, not you, not anymore. You are allowed to see yourself with compassion. You deserve to be held by your own kindness. And most importantly, your story is not defined by the version of it your adult child chooses to tell. You know the life you lived, you know the sacrifices you made, and you know the love you carried. Jung believed that healing begins when we integrate all parts of ourselves, the mistakes, the successes, the love, the fear, into one whole picture. You are a whole parent, and a good one. So, are you a bad parent? No. You are a loving parent who did your best with what you had. Your imperfections do not erase the years of giving, caring, protecting, guiding, and showing up. You have the right to peace, the right to compassion for yourself, and the right to let go of guilt that never belonged to you. In the next episode, we'll talk about something many of you have been quietly carrying. How to live without bitterness, without resentment, and without the crushing loneliness that often follows emotional distance or a painful break with adult children. Episode 4. How not to feel resentment and loneliness after a break with adult children. If you're here today, It probably means you've experienced something deeply painful. The emotional distance or complete break with a son or daughter you once held close to your heart. A distance that wasn't supposed to happen. A silence that feels heavier than words ever could. People often say, they're adults now. Let them live their life. But those words ignore the truth. You didn't stop being a parent just because they stopped being a child. And when the calls stop, when the visits don't happen, when birthdays are forgotten, or when communication becomes cold, sharp, or non-existent, a very natural human reaction appears. Hurt. Hurt that turns into resentment. Hurt that turns into loneliness. Hurt that sometimes turns inward into guilt. Today, we're not going to deny those feelings. We're going to understand them and gently loosen their grip. 1. Why resentment appears and why it doesn't make you a bad person. Let's begin with the truth. Resentment often grows where love once lived openly. You resent because you care. You resent because you gave. You resent because you expected, reasonably, that love would come back to you in some form. When that expectation is broken, the heart doesn't become empty. It becomes tight, constricted, caught between longing and anger. Carl Jung said something very powerful. Where love rules, there is no will to power. Where power dominates, love is lacking. In the parent-child dynamic, resentment often appears when love cannot flow naturally anymore, when one person holds the power to give or withhold connection, and the other stands defenseless before that choice. If you feel resentment, it does not mean you are bitter. It means a bond you valued has been interrupted, and your heart is trying to make sense of the fracture. You are not wrong for feeling this. You are human. 2. Loneliness after a break. Why it hits harder than other forms of loneliness. Loneliness after losing connection with an adult child is not the same as regular loneliness. It has layers. The loneliness of missing the person, the loneliness of losing the future you imagined with them, the loneliness of silence that offers no answers, and the loneliness of shame. What will people think? A woman named Eleanor once said, "I can handle being alone. I just can't handle being abandoned by the person I raised." This form of loneliness isn't emptiness, it's grief. Grief for a relationship that still exists inside you but not out in the world. And grief always needs time, compassion, and witness, even if the witness is just your own gentle awareness. 3. The turning point. Accepting what you cannot change. This is not about surrendering. It's about releasing the struggle that drains you. Jung taught that suffering becomes unbearable only when we resist it, when we soften into acceptance, not approval, not agreement, but acceptance. The suffering loses its sharpness. Acceptance sounds like this: I cannot control their choices. I cannot force them to see me clearly. I cannot rewrite the past, but I can choose how I live today. I can choose how I speak to myself. I can choose what I carry forward. That shift doesn't change the child, but it changes you. It gives you back your dignity, your breathing space, your sense of self. Acceptance is not the end of healing. It is the start. 4. How to soften resentment without pretending everything is fine. Resentment cannot be healed by denial. It heals through acknowledgement, meaning, and self-restoration. Let's walk through the steps. Step 1. Name the hurt clearly. I am hurt. because I didn't receive the love and respect I hoped for. When you name the pain, you stop fighting it. Step 2. Separate yourself from their choices. Their silence is about them, not about your worth. Their coldness is about their emotional capacity, not your value. Step 3. Release the invisible contract. Many parents hold an unspoken expectation. I gave you love. You'll give me love in return. It's natural. It's fair, but it's not guaranteed. Releasing this invisible contract helps your heart breathe again. Step 4. Shift the focus back to your life. Resentment shrinks when your world expands again, with hobbies, friendships, interests, new routines, or simply new quiet moments that belong only to you. Resentment is fed by absence. It dissolves in presence, your presence in your own life. 5. How to soften loneliness. Without waiting for your child to return, loneliness after a break with a child hurts because the world does not acknowledge it. But I acknowledge it. And many people listening feel the same loneliness you do. Here is how we soften it. Reclaim your identity beyond parent. You are still a parent, yes, but you are also a friend, a partner, a thinker, a creator, a human being with depth and wisdom accumulated over decades. Loneliness lifts when identity expands. Build small circles of connection. It doesn't have to be big. One neighbor, one friend, one hobby group, one online community where people understand your situation. Humans were not meant to grieve alone. Create daily rituals of meaning. A morning walk, a cup of tea in silence, a journal entry, lighting a candle. Something that reminds you, I am still here, my life is still mine. Allow yourself to mourn. Loneliness shrinks when grief is allowed to speak. Pretending nothing is wrong only deepens the wound. Now, a few real-life stories to help you feel less alone. A story where the mother stopped waiting. A woman named Grace waited years for her daughter to return to the relationship. One day she said, I'm done waiting. I'm not cutting her out, but I'm not freezing my life anymore. She joined a choir, started traveling, and slowly her loneliness softened. Not because her daughter returned, but because she returned to herself. A story where the father forgave for his own peace. A man named Robert forgave his adult son not because the son apologized, but because Robert was tired of carrying the weight. He said, forgiveness is not a gift I give him, it's a gift I give myself. Story about the grandmother who built new family Helen, whose children barely visited, built a chosen family from neighbors, book clubs, and 2 women she met at church. She said, I realized family is not only blood, it's love that shows up. You deserve love that shows up, not love that keeps you waiting. 7. What Jung teaches us about letting go. Carl Jung believed that relationships which cannot transform must be released, not abandoned, not erased, but released from expectation. He wrote that freedom begins when we stop forcing the other to be who we need them to be. Letting go is not losing your child. Letting go means losing the grip of the suffering that surrounds them. It means saying, I carry love, not pain. I carry hope, not expectation. I carry myself no matter who stays or leaves. This is the foundation of emotional freedom. In the next episode, we'll talk about how to rebuild your confidence and sense of self after years of feeling unappreciated, and how to create a life that feels meaningful again. Episode 5. Rebuilding yourself and letting go without losing love. Stay with me until the end, because this episode will give you something many parents never receive: a gentle way to let go of pain without letting go of love, and a way to free yourself from guilt that was never yours to begin with. You raised your child with love. You hoped for closeness, gratitude, respect. Yet now, there is silence, distance, coldness, or even blame. Maybe you'll recognize yourself here. You walk past your phone more times a day than you admit, hoping, quietly, that maybe this time they wrote something. A simple, "How are you?" would be enough. But nothing comes. Or maybe you replay your last conversation in your mind, searching for the exact moment when the tone changed. Was it a word, a misunderstanding, or did it begin long before, quietly, invisibly? Or maybe you've caught yourself fighting back tears at the supermarket when you see parents laughing with their grown children. And you think, why isn't that my life anymore? This loneliness, it's not ordinary loneliness. It's grief. A grief no one talks about. Here is the truth no one teaches parents. You're not losing your child. You're losing the version of the relationship you imagined. You're grieving the future you hoped for. Maybe these moments feel familiar too. You didn't lose connection in one dramatic moment. You lost it slowly. A holiday skipped, a birthday brushed off, a cold tone, a one-word reply. The relationship didn't break. It faded. And fading can hurt more than breaking. Carl Jung once wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." And acceptance isn't defeat. Acceptance is stepping out of a fight you didn't start. Ungrateful behavior in adult children is rarely about your parenting. It's about their inner world, one they struggle to understand themselves. Maybe you've wondered, why do they speak warmly to others but keep distance with me? Why do strangers get more patience than I do? Why do they open their heart to friends, but not to the person who raised them? These questions haunt many good, devoted parents, but their behavior reflects their emotional state, not your worth. They may be projecting fears onto you, avoiding responsibility by blaming the past, feeling overwhelmed by adulthood, trapped in an outdated childhood image of you, intimidated by your strength, unable to face their own insecurities. You did not cause their adulthood. You cannot carry their reactions. Now take a slow breath. Perhaps you'll recognize these moments too. You've apologized for things you don't even believe were wrong, just to keep the peace. You've typed long messages and deleted them, worried you'd sound too emotional. You've held back your true feelings because you didn't want to push them farther away, and yet nothing changed. Not because you failed, but because you were never the one creating the distance. Let this settle gently inside you. You are not a bad parent. You are a human being who loved deeply, who tried sincerely, who carried more than anyone ever saw. So how do you move forward without bitterness, without guilt, and without losing love? First, let go of the emotional burden, not the love. Letting go doesn't close your heart. It closes the wound. Second, rebuild your identity beyond being a parent. Maybe this sounds familiar. You make tea in the evening and instinctively set aside a second cup, a habit from the past. You walk around your quiet home and feel a hollow space where their presence used to be. You begin telling a story about your child and stop halfway because you're no longer sure what your relationship is. These moments don't mean you're broken. They mean you're ready to rediscover who you are. Third, honor your grief. Grief is not weakness. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Fourth, build the life you deserve. Small joys, meaningful rituals, people who actually show up, a future that isn't frozen in waiting, and finally, accept that their emotional growth is their journey, not your burden. You gave them life. You gave them love. You gave them everything you could. The rest is theirs. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your child thinks you should be, not who guilt tries to make you, who you truly are." Maybe you'll recognize one more truth. You're tired, not of loving, but of loving alone. You deserve connection that doesn't have to be begged for. You deserve respect that isn't conditional. You deserve peace that depends on you, not on someone else's mood, memory, or maturity. And if you feel safe, tell us your story in the comments. Your voice helps all of us heal together. Subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the beginning of your new chapter.